Now, example 13, they ask you find the zeros. From now, always they're gonna ask you find the zeros. Find the zeros, that means we need to find the x-intercept. That means I'm gonna let y equal 0. So every time from now, from this point, if they ask you find the zeros, that means they're gonna ask you to find the x-intercept. Where's the graph is going to be intersect with the x-coordinate. So find, for example, 13, they ask you find the zeros. That means always I'm gonna let f of x equal 0. So in this case, we have f of x equal 3x plus 15. They not ask me for the to graph, but they ask me to find the zeros. That means the x-intercepts. So f of x equals 0. That means 0 is going to be equal to 3x plus 15. So I'm going to solve this one. Minus 15 from both sides. Then negative 15 is going to be equal to 3x. Divide both sides by 3. That means negative 5 is going to be equal x. So on this point, x equal negative 5, y is going to be equal 0. This is x-intercept. They're not going to tell you find the x-intercept. They're going to tell you find the zeros, which is mean the graph intersect with x-coordinate at this point. When you graph this function, you will see it's intersect with x-coordinate at this point. We can check that by graphing the function. Let's see. Let's do a simple graph. I'm going to graph this function and check. That means y equal 3x plus 15. So when I graph it, check. The graph intersect with x coordinate at the point. You see the point? 0, negative 5. Negative 5 is 0. X is negative 5, y is 0. This is called the zeros of the graph. But now we have to learn all types. Like example 14, find the zeros. With example 13, we have only one 0, which is negative 5, comma 0. Let's check example 14. Find the zeros. That's the only thing they're going to ask you. So 14, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We have f of x equal 2x squared minus 11x minus 21. Find the zeros for this graph. That means I'm going to let y equals 0 or f of x equals 0, which is the same thing. Y equals 0. This side is going to be 0. So, because always we already know f of x is mean the same thing that y. It's going to be 2x squared minus 11x minus 21. Now, you see, that's why always factoring is important, because now we need to factor this trinomial. How are we going to factor it? We're going to open two parentheses. There's another method, it's the AC method. You can use it, it's fine. So I'm going to put 2x here, and I'm going to put x here. The 21 I can use. I'm going to write down the options. 1 times 21 or 3 times 7. What else we can use? 3 and 7 and 121. That's the only two options we have. Let's use it 3 and 7. So I'm going to put the 3 here and 7 here. So now 3x and 7. Another one. This is a 3x. And this one is 14x. So I need to get negative 11x. So what I'm going to do, 14 is the bigger. I'm going to put here negative. So negative and here positive. So now it's going to be positive 3x, negative 14x. The result is going to be 11x. That means this is the right option. This is just to check the sign. So now I have two solutions, which is 0 equal 2x plus 3 and x minus 7. That means 0 factor property. So 0 is going to be equal 2x plus 3 and 0 equal x minus 7. On this side, I'm going to add 7. So x is going to be equal 7. This is the first 0. And I'm going to minus a 3 here. That means 2x to be equal negative 3. Then divide both sides by 2. So x is going to be equal negative 3 over 2. So let's write down the result as a 0, which is mean the x-intercept. So I'm going to write down the x coordinate and the y is 0. And on this side, this is the x coordinate and the y is 0. That's why we called it zeros. That means the same thing, the x-intercepts. Let's go a little bit up. So I'm going to type, I have two solutions here. We can type it as a point, I think, but here, the same thing, they ask you x equal, which is the number is negative 5. Here we got two solutions. So I'm going to say 7, comma, and fraction negative 3 divided by 2. Let's check this one. And we're going to go to the next example. Here we go. So type your solution as not a point, as negative 5.
Okay, because I was just about to ask. So we don't put the 0 in the answer up there on 13?
No, don't put the 0. On
Okay.
the test, if you type it like this one, I'm going to say, and they're telling you wrong. Now I'm going to say this is right, okay? But on whoop sign here, on the example, do not type the 0, because they ask you only to write down the x, which is the result, x equal negative 5, okay?
Okay.
The same thing here. You see what I typed? X equals 7, comma, and the other result is negative 3 over 2. All types. How are we going to solve these examples? So example 16. Let's do another page. Example 16. That's the only thing they're going to ask you. Find the zeros. We have, 15. Sorry, not 16. Okay, example 15, we have f of x, also find the zeros. So f of x equal x plus 5 over 2x squared minus 10. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. F of x, it's mean we need to find the 0. So this side equals 0. That's mean f of x equals 0. So 0 is going to be equal x plus 5 over 2x squared minus 10. So now this is a rational function. How are we going to find the solution for this example? To find the solution for the rational function, we need to cancel the denominator. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominator, which is 2x squared minus 10. That means is going to be 0 times 2x squared minus 10 equal x plus 5 over 2x squared minus 10, also times 2x squared minus 10. So multiply both sides by the denominator here. That means this one is going to cancel with this side. The left of the right side is x plus 5. 0 times anything is going to be equal 0. Now this is linear equation. It's easier to solve. So we're just going to say minus 5 from both sides. That means x is going to be equal negative 5. So this is example 15. And how we're going to solve it. We're going to do exactly the same thing with example 16, negative 5. With example 16, it's a little bit different, and you will see where is the different thing. So we have f of x equal x squared minus 16x plus 63 over 2x over 5x. So what I'm going to do with this one, exactly the same thing. F of x equals 0. I need to find the zeros. That means I'm going to plug in 0 here. So 0 is going to be equal x squared minus 16x plus 63 divided by 5x. It's also a rational function, a rational equation. How are we going to solve this one? Rational equations, we're going to solve it by cancel the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 5x. So it's going to be 0 times 5x equal x squared minus 16x plus 63 over 5x times 5x. We're going to cancel this one with this one. 0 times 5x is going to be 0 equal x squared minus 16x plus 63. So now this is a trinomial equals 0. So we need to factor this one, which is easier now to solve. I'm going to open two parentheses, x here, 63. I have 1 times 63, and I can use 7 times 9. 7 times 9 equals 16 if I add it. So I'm going to say minus 7 minus 9. If you check that, this is negative 7x. And this one is negative 9x. If you add it, it's going to be negative 16x. So this is the right option. That means I have two solutions. 0 is going to be equal x minus 9, and 0 is going to be equal x minus 7. We're going to add 9 here, cancel. So x is going to be equal 9. We're going to add 7 here. So x is going to be equal 7. That means we have two zeros for this example. So I'm going to type here 7, comma, and 9. Here we go. So example 17, let's check how we're going to solve this one. So we have f of x equal negative 49x, negative 49x to the power 4 plus 16x squared. They ask you again, find the zeros, which is mean this side is going to be equal 0. So I'm going to keep in my mind f of x equals 0. So this side equals 0 equal negative 49x to the power 4 plus 16x squared. Now I need to factor this side. So how I'm going to factor this side? Always check the first step. Do I have GCF? Yes, I have GCF between x to the power 4 and x squared. So x is going to be, I'm going to take the x squared as a common between these two terms. And check, do we have common between numbers? 49 and 16? No, that's mean it's going to be negative 49 x squared plus 16. Because x squared 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. That's mean that's it. So now we have also two solutions or two zeros. This side is going to be 0 equal x squared. And the other side is going to be 0 equal negative 49x squared plus 16. Now, next step, what we have to do, x squared equals 0. I'm going to take the square root for both sides. Square root here, that means x is going to be equal 0. This is the first 0. On the other side, we have to solve this one. So I'm going to say minus 16 from both sides. This is canceled. So negative 16 is going to be equal negative 49 x squared. Now, next step here, we need to find the x squared. So I'm going to divide by negative 49. That's mean this is canceled with this one. So x squared is going to be equal 16 over 49. Because negative divided by negative is going to be positive. Now I need to find the value of x. So I'm going to take the square root. The square root for x squared is going to be the square root of 49. Then the square root of x squared is going to be x equal. I'm not going to forget to add plus or minus. It's supposed to be here in front of the number. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 49 is 7. That means the result is going to be two zeros from here, positive 4 and positive 4 over 7 and negative 4 over 7. And we have a 0 from here, so we have 3 zeros. 2 from this side and 1 from this side. That's mean here we have 4 over 7 and we have negative 4 over 7. So that's it for this example. So I'm going to type negative 4 over 7. You don't have to type it in order. 0 and 4 over 7. That's it for this example. Last one. If you have any questions about example 17, you can ask. The last one, question 18, we have square root. This is really important. Let's check how we're going to solve this one. Alpha of x equal square root of 9x plus 8. How are we going to solve this example? There is many ways to solve this one. So what I'm going to do here, I already know I need to find the zeros. That means alpha of x equals 0. That means this side 0 equal square root of 9x plus 8. Check what I'm going to do the next step. So every time when you have square root equals 0, what I'm going to do, I need to cancel the square root because this is the problem. I need to cancel the the root and solve the rest for x. So I'm going to square both sides. Here is the square root of 9x plus 8. I'm going to square it and square the other side. So the square root squared, that means this one cancel with this one, because you're going to multiply the root by itself. That means you're going to say square root of 9x plus 8 times square root of 9x plus 8. If you multiply the square root by itself, it's going to be just the number under the root, which is this one. So on this side is going to be 9x plus 8 equal 0 squared is going to be 0. Now the next step, we just have to solve it for x. So I'm going to say minus 8, cancel this side. So 9x is going to be equal negative 8. And then the last step, you're going to divide both sides by 9. So negative 8 over 9 is going to be equal x. This is the 0 for this problem. That means it looks like the x-intercept with negative 8 over 9 and y is 0. So we're going to type here, x is going to be equal negative 8 over 9. That's it for this problem. For this problem, if you have cubed here, or power 4, or power 6, like if you have the cubic root of 9x plus 8 equal 0. So don't worry about that. How are we going to solve this one? You're going to take the cubic for both sides, the cubic for this one and the cubic for this one. So for this side, you're going to cancel the root with the power is going to be just 9x plus 8. On this side is going to be still 0. The same thing if you have number here. So if you have number here, what you're going to do? You're going to do exactly the same thing. Like if you have 2 here, you can take the cubic for both sides. So it's going to be 2 cubed, which is equal 8, and then solve the rest. So both is going to be right. The slope, because we're going to use the slope to find the increasing and decreasing. So the slope, if you have 2 points, x1, y1, and the second point is x2, y2. So the slope is going to be equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is the slope. And it depends about the sign of the slope. I'm not going to care about how much is going to be the slope. I'm going to care about the sign of the slope, if it's positive, negative, or 0. So if the slope is positive, so it's going to be increasing. If the slope is negative, it's going to be decreasing. If the slope is 0, it's going to be constant. So that's the important thing about the slope, and you have to practice. Be careful when you plug in the numbers here. We have 2 negative sign here. So you have to be careful. So let's check example 19. They ask you for this function, here's the graph. So I'm not going to care about this one. Don't confuse yourself. We have the graph for this function. We need to find where's the increasing, where's the decreasing, and where's going to be constant. So check here. The turning point for this graph is going to be this point. which is the point 0, 0. This is the turning point of the graph. From this one, and then the graph is turning and keep going down. So we need to prove that this side is decreasing and this side is decreasing. Maybe it's going to be this side increasing and this side increasing. So we have to check. We don't know. By numbers, yes, we can figure out. So here is this point. Now, what I'm going to do, I need to test this side of the graph, and then I'm going to test this side of the graph. How I'm going to test this side of the graph? I need to pick a point. So let's choose this point. It goes, I don't know where it goes. Let's see, it goes to 4. Let's say it goes to 4. So I'm going to pick this point from the graph, and I'm going to pick this point to check this side. That's mean I'm going to choose -2 and 4. This point, -2 and 4, because I need to check this side of the graph. And the second point, I'm going to choose this one, which is 0, 0. So here's, I have 2 points. This is 19. The first point is -2 and 4. You can choose any point from the graph. Even if it's decimal point, you're going to get exactly the same result, because our goal, it depends about the sign, positive, negative, or 0. I'm going to choose the second point, 0, 0. So the second point is 0, 0. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this is x1, y1, and the second one is x2, y2. And let's find the slope for this graph. So the slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Which is going to be y2 is the 0 minus y1 is 4 over x2 is 0 minus x1. Be careful. There is minus here with the formula. Minus here is with the formula. x1 is -2. That means 0 minus 4 is going to be -4 over negative times negative, positive. So it's going to be 2. Now, -4 divided by 2 is going to be -2. I told you I'm not going to care about how much the number. The important thing is the sign. That means I have negative slope, so it's mean it's decreasing. So how I'm going to write down the solution? It's decreasing. I'm going to write down the solution. Depends about the x coordinate. So what I need to do, we're going to write down the solution as interval notation. This side is decreasing. I'm just going to follow the x coordinate. The x coordinate for this graph going to the infinity, the negative infinity. So my solution, I'm going to say from negative infinity to this point. To this point, the graph is decreasing. So I'm going to write down from negative infinity to this point, which is 0, the graph is decreasing. Now, I'm done from this one. I'm going to go ahead and check the second part from the graph. So also, I'm going to choose 2 points. I can choose this point, the first one. I can choose this point also, which is 0, 0. Now I need to find another point on the graph. I can choose this one, I can choose this one, I can choose this one. This one is easier because why? It's not a decimal number. So I'm going to choose x is 2. Let's write down here. 2 and -4. So let's work on this one. Here is the first point and here is the second point. Let's find the slope on this side. So The second point, now it's 0, 0, and then the other point is 2, -4. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Find the slope. This is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So the slope is going to be equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And it's going to be y2, which is -4, minus y1 is 0 over x2 is 2 minus x1 is 0. So it's going to be -4 over 2, which is equal -2. So the same thing, from the point 0 to the point infinity, the graph is still decreasing because we have negative slope. That means I can add these two intervals together, and I can say from negative infinity to positive infinity, the graph is decreasing. So I'm going to say from negative infinity to positive infinity is decreasing. So we don't have to type two interval notation because the whole graph is decreasing from this point, the negative infinity, and keep going down to the positive infinity. The graph is decreasing. And again, when I write down the solution, I'm going to write it down on the x coordinate. That means here is negative infinity. From negative infinity to the point 0, 0 here, the graph is decreasing. And from the point 0 to the infinity, the graph is decreasing. That means from negative infinity to positive infinity, the graph is decreasing. So how I'm going to type the solution? On this one, they're telling you if there's no interval, just write down D and E. So I'm going to say for this one, D and E. D and E, because there is no graph here. And the same thing, there is no constant. So D and E here. And on this side, we have to write down interval notation. Let's see, where is the infinity? Here is the infinity. So you're going to go to symbols, and here is the infinity. So the first thing, it's negative infinity, comma, to positive infinity. So this is the solution for this graph. Before, let's now. Let's check the solution. Then we're going to go to the next example. Again, I'm not going to solve all these examples because I needed to practice. Maybe you're going to get exactly the same thing. So you see it's right. Let's go to the next one. You're going to do exactly the same thing. So what are you going to do? I'm just going to explain that. On this graph, again, I'm not going to care about the function here. Don't confuse yourself because we have the graph. So the graph is divided to two parts. That means we need to test this side and we need to test this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose a point on this side, and here's the second point. So this is always when you choose a point on a side to graph it, make sure to choose a point, not a decimal number, because the graph is going to be, to find the slope is going to be easier for you. So I'm going to choose this point, which is 0, 0. So 0 and 0. And here's the second point. So I'm going to say this is x1, this is y1, and this is x2, y2. Then I'm going to find the slope on this one. When you find the slope, you're going to figure out it's increasing or decreasing. You're going to write down the solution on the x coordinate. That's mean from negative infinity to this point, which is 2, the graph from negative infinity to the point 2, the graph is increasing, decreasing, or constant. You're going to finish the first part. The second part, you're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to choose a point on this side. So let's choose a point on the other side. You see now, I can choose any points here on this graph, but the easiest one, I'm going to choose this one, which is 4 and 0. So now we're going to say this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. Then you're going to find the slope. So when you find the slope, if it's positive, it's going to be increasing. If it's negative, it's going to be decreasing. If it's 0, it's going to be constant. But the graph is not constant because it's not a straight line. So the solution is going to be from this point, which is 2, and you're going to go to infinity. That means the solution for this side is going to be from 0, no, not from 2, not 0. From 2 to infinity, the graph is from 2 to infinity, the graph is going to be increasing, decreasing, or constant. So do these steps and just type the solution where it's going to be. If there is no solution, if there is no constant, you're just going to type D and E, because there is no constant part. That's it for this example. Our next example 21. Let's work on this one, how to find the increasing, decreasing, or constant. So the same thing, this is example 21. You're gonna find increasing, decreasing, and constant. I'm not gonna care about the function, but I'm gonna start picking the points on the graph. So let's choose the first point. This is the first part. I'm gonna choose, be careful. So here is the first point, -5 and 200. X is -5 and Y is 200. So we can choose this point. So I'm gonna say -5 and 200. Again, I'm not gonna care about how much is going to be the slope, how much is going to be the slope. I'm gonna care about just the sign of the slope. And you see the second point, this one is not 0, 0. It says 0, 1. So it's a little bit higher than the 0. So be careful. Here is the second point, is 0, 1. So I'm gonna choose the point here, 0, 1, which is a point on the graph. So this one is going to be x1, y1, and here is x2, y2. So let's find the slope. So the slope is going to be equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The slope is going to be y2 is 1 minus y1 is 200 over x2, which is 0, minus x1 is going to be -5. That's mean 1 minus 200 is going to be 1, -199 over negative times negative is positive over 5. So if you divide negative number by positive number, the result is going to be negative. So the slope is going to be -39.8. Again, I'm not going to care about how much is going to be the result of the slope. I'm going to care about the sign, which is negative. That's mean I'm going to follow the x coordinate. So for the first part, from negative infinity keep going to this point. Now to this one. How much the x for this point is 0. So I'm going to say from negative infinity to 0, the graph is decreasing. We have something wrong. This is negative. Oh, yeah, we have something wrong. Because this is negative 200, not 200. This is negative 200. That means it's going to be minus negative 200. So it's going to be positive. So it's going to be positive. That means it's going to be positive. So from negative infinity to 0, the graph is increasing. So the graph is increasing. So I'm going to type this one here. Now we need to check the second part. Check the second part from this point to this one, which is this is 5, this is 6. So what you're going to do, you're going to choose 2 points. Here is the first point, and here is the second point. So here is the second part. I'm going to choose the point 0, 1. And the second point is 6 and negative 1 or 7. Let's find the slope for these 2 points. So now this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So the slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That means the slope is going to be y2 is negative 107 minus y1 is 1 over x2 is 6 minus x1 is 0. That means it's going to be negative 108 divided by 6 minus 0 is 6. I think you can divide these two numbers. So 108 divided by 6 is going to be 18. So it's going to be negative 18. It's negative, that means decreasing. How I'm going to write down the solution? Just the x coordinate. So from the point 0, which is this one, to the point x equals 6. So I'm going to say from 0 to 6, just the x coordinate is decreasing. The function is decreasing. The third part, I'm going to start from this point to the infinity. So to the infinity, that means I have to choose a point on this side. Check this point. This is easier to work on it, which is the x is 10 and the y is 0. So now I have another 2 points. The first one is 6 and negative 107. And the second one is, I'm going to choose 10 and 0. Now this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. The slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and it's going to be y2 is 0 minus y1 is negative 107. You see, that's the important thing. Negative sign with the formula, and y1 is negative number over x2 is 10 minus x1 is 6. So negative times negative is going to be positive. So it's going to be 107 divided by 4. How much is going to be the result? Is going to be decimal number. So 107 divided by 4 is going to be 26.75. I'm not going to care about how much the number. I'm going to care about the sign, which is positive. That's mean increasing. That means from this point, which is the 6, I'm just going to follow the x coordinate. So from 6 to infinity, from 6 and keep going to the infinity, the graph is increasing. So that's it for this example. So we're gonna type increasing. So we have two interval notation increasing, and we have one decreasing. Increasing, we're gonna write down the first interval notation from negative infinity to 0. It's increasing. So negative infinity to 0, the function is increasing. And we have to write down into your solution interval notation. That means I can put comma. I hope it's work with comma, not union. The second part is 6 to infinity. From 6, comma, to infinity. And I think they're not going to accept the comma. We have to put union sign. Let's check how we're going to find the union sign. Not here. This one. See, you're going to go to the set, and here is the union. You have to put union between the parentheses. If you have more than one interval, you're going to put union. You're going to go to the sets and click on union. Decreasing is going to be only from 0 to 6. So it's going to be 0, comma 6. And constant, there is no constant, so we're going to say D and E. D and E. That's it for this example. So that's it. So the next example, you're going to do exactly the same thing. Here's the graph. We're not going to solve this one. We're just going to explain that. So now with this graph, we have 3 parts. Here is the first part, here's the second one, and here is the third one. So on the first part, you have to choose a point, 2 points on this part. So I'm going to choose, here is the first point with -5. That means the first point here is going to be -5 and 10. And I can choose this point. So this one is going to be x1, y1, and this one is going to be x2, y2. And you're going to find the slope. The solution is going to be on the x coordinate. So it's going to be from negative infinity to the point here, which is -2. To -2, this is the first interval notation. Then you're going to do the same thing for the second part. You're going to choose these 2 points. And now this one is going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. And you're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to find the slope on this part is 0. Because you see, it's constant. So the slope is going to be 0. How to write down the solution? It's going to be from -2, which is this point, to number 2. This is the second interval notation. The third part here, here's the first point. I'm going to choose another point. So I can choose the point 5, and y is going to be 10, which is this one. So now this is x1, y1, this is x2, y2. I'm going to find the slope, and the solution is going to be from 2 to infinity. The function is going to be increasing, decreasing, or constant. The slope is going to be positive here, the slope is going to be negative here, and the slope is going to be constant. It's going to be 0, so it's mean constant. From negative infinity to 0.0, and the second part is going to be from 0 to the x equal 2, and the third part is going to be from 2 to infinity. So you're going to do exactly the same steps for the previous example. Let's go ahead to 24. find the average rate of change. This is really important. Let's check how we're gonna solve this one. Example 24. So every time, which is the same thing, the slope, every time when they ask you find the average rate of change. It's f, which is the same thing, the slope, f to the x2, that's mean y2, minus f to the x1, that's mean y1, over x2 minus x1. This is exactly the same thing, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And it's going to be the slope. So you can use this formula, you can use this formula, it's fine. So when they ask you find the average rate of change, that's mean you're gonna find the slope. So if you check 24, 25, and 26, it's exactly the same example. But we have different functions, we have different x's. So for 24, we have f of x equal, we have the function equal negative 8x plus 15. We have x1 equal 0 and x2 equal 3. Now we need to find the average rate of change. We have just x1 and x2. We don't have the y1 and y2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug in f to the x1 is going to be negative f to the x1. That's mean plug in x1 in the function, which is going to be f to the x1 is 0. So plug in 0 in the function, which is negative 8 times 0 plus 15. Negative 8 times 0 is going to be 0. So f to the 0 is going to be 15. This is f to the x1. The same thing. Now f to the x2, you can say here is y1. F to the x2 is going to be, you're gonna plug in f, how much x2? 3. So now we're going to plug in 3 here. So this one is going to be negative 8 times 3 plus 15. That's mean f to the 3 is going to be equal. Negative 8 times 3 is going to be negative 16 plus negative 24 plus 15. Now what are you going to do the next? Add these two numbers. So f to the 3 is going to be negative 9. And this is y2. So now we have x1, we have x2, y1, y2. So we're just going to plug in everything in the calculator. Sorry, in the formula. You can choose this one, you can choose this one, doesn't matter. That means the slope is going to be equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is the same thing, the rate of the average rate of change. So y2 is going to be negative 9 minus y1, it's 15 over x1, x2 is a 3 minus x1 is 0. So it's going to be negative 24 over 3 minus 0 is going to be 3. And this one is going to be negative 8. That means the average rate of change is going to be negative 8. So for this example, it's going to be -8. You're gonna do exactly the same thing for 25 and 26 to find the average rate of change. You have to plug in x1 in the function to find y1, and you have to plug in x2 in the function to find y2. And then you're going to find the slope, which is going to be the same thing, the average rate of change. We can solve this one before we move into the next section. We have the function as f of the x equal x squared minus 4x plus 8. Plus 8. And we have x1 equal 1 and x2 6. Now we need to find f x1, which is y1, equal f to the x1. You can do it like this. That's mean f to the x1 is 1. So I'm going to plug in 1 here. It's going to be 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 8, which is equal 1 squared is 1 minus 4 times 1, it's 4 plus 8. So it's going to be 9 minus 4, that's mean 5. This is f of x1. You can say y2 equal f to the x2. You can work like this, but it's going to be the same thing. So y2 is going to be f to the x2 is 6. That's mean you're going to plug in 6 here. So it's going to be 6 squared minus 6 squared minus 4 times 6 plus 8. That means it's going to be 36 minus 24 plus 8. Now this is going to be x2. Sorry, y2. So 36 minus 24 is going to be 12. 12 plus 8 is going to be 20. Now, the average rate of change is going to be the same thing, the slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Y2 is 20 minus y1, it's going to be 5 over x2 is 6 minus x1 is 1. So 20 minus 5 is going to be 15 over 5, and this one is going to be 3. That means the average rate of change is going to be 3. So I'm going to type here 3, and that's it for this example.